Well, we're tickled to death to have Phil. He's written a great book. What's the name of that book, Phil? Fourth and 10 every week, every day.
Phil, you with us?
there?
Yeah.
Fourth and goal every day.
Fourth and goal every day. I had fourth and 10, but fourth and goal was even better.
Yeah, Phil.
For
me, being on the show with Dad is fourth and goal every day. Trust me.
It may be, but we're gonna have it. We're gonna talk about that in a few minutes. But I want everybody to know it because we need to push that thing for you until after Christmas because people forget you when football season's over. So I'm gonna take good care of you.
Well, I appreciate it. I hope you guys are having a good season so far.
Well, we're doing okay. I get buried at work. Let me ask you this question. I want to give A&M some credit for playing well, not give Alabama some, things that say they didn't play well. I think that's a hard place to play. Alabama may not have played as perfectly as they wanted to. But that somewhere along the line, A&M gets some credit. Now, and I want you to, if I'm wrong, I want you to say, Wimp, you're dead wrong. And I don't need no kudos. Just tell me about that game.
Well, I think really what happened is most people watched A&M in their opener against UCLA when they gave up the 44-10 lead and lost 45-44. The national media, the pundits, most everybody had left A&M for dead after that second half collapse, and no one really paid much attention to A&M over the last month. And the truth of it is that over those last 3 or 4 games, particularly the last 2 games against Arkansas and South Carolina, they were really showing some significant improvement. So I think what really happened Saturday night is Alabama had a firm grip on that game. They were up 24-3. It looks like they're on their way to a 31, 38-3 type of win, and they lost a bit of focus. They had a penalty, a drop pass, and then a fumble, their first turnover in 37 quarters, and that was enough to at least trigger A&M to respond a bit. Of course, Texas A&M took the ball then and converted 2 fourth-down plays. One was almost a miracle in terms of the way Kellen Mond, the true freshman, scrambled and threw a pass to Christian Kirk for a touchdown. And now all of a sudden the crowd was into it. And the game tenor sort of changed because really I think Bama lost a little focus. And I think that's one of the things that Nick Saban is really trying to emphasize to his team is about trying to finish. They've certainly done that against Vanderbilt and Ole Miss. And I think they probably just lost focus a bit in the latter stages of the A&M game. But A&M had improved quite a bit over the last 3 or 4 weeks, and I think most people's impression is that they just weren't that good of a team based off their opener.
Yeah, Phil, when you said that they lost a little focus, and I think you're right, I think that'll help Nick Saban as they prepare for these games on down the road. It gives you something to coach and practice. When they didn't play as well against Colorado State, They had their attention in practice to get ready for Vanderbilt, even the backup guys that he had to take out and put the starters back in. And sometimes those problems are there when you're beating people so bad they don't really surface. So I think in the long run, this could help Alabama, couldn't it?
I don't think there's any doubt about it. When you can win and not play your best and have a chance to go back and work on things and improve certain areas, I think that's where Alabama's at their best. So, while Nick Saban was disappointed and tried to deliver a message to his team through the media after the game, the truth of it is that, this is a huge advantage for Alabama because, look, the truth of it is, we're in a world of social media now where the players have access to Twitter and Facebook and ESPN and all these different outlets are right there, not even on television, on their phone. And so when you look at Bama's schedule with the way things have played out for Arkansas and Tennessee and LSU and Mississippi State, the trick is going to be playing to a certain standard and competing against themselves. And for the most part, Bama's mastered that better than anybody in the country. And so, that last 20 minutes of the game against A&M absolutely helps them get ready for this next stretch of games.
Yep, Dave.
The league in whole is not. It's a league of Georgias and Alabamas, and that's what it is. Georgia and everybody else chasing them and not going to catch them. Everybody's chasing Alabama and not going to catch them. Based on that, I know you can't say that because anything can happen. I'm not asking you to, but I think that Georgia is a formidable opponent. I think, and they can go down like everybody else, but I do think this is a team on the other side of the league for one time in the last several years, not the Missouris, not the Floridas, not those people that went and played Alabama, but I think in this one, it's an opponent that's going to get everybody's attention.
Well, there's no question that, Bama and Georgia seem to be on a collision course. I think, Auburn feels like that they've improved, and they're going to have a lot to say about whether Alabama can get to Atlanta or not. But on the eastern side of it, I mean, Florida's just been decimated by injury. They had those suspensions. It's been a very uneven year for the Gators. And, with Georgia, they had the 1-point road win over Notre Dame. They're playing a true freshman quarterback, but they had 10 starters back on defense. Plus, on offense, they were bringing back Tony Michel and Nick Chubb so they can lean on their run game a bit. I think their offensive line is probably better than it's been over the last several years, and that's been one of Georgia's Achilles heels, in my estimation, is that just offensive line-wise, they haven't had the kind of blockers needed to go against the top flight defensive units. But, as you sit here in early October, it definitely looks like Georgia, Alabama. Georgia made a change from Mark Richt and went to Kirby Smart because they felt like he could bring an attitude and a toughness to the program that maybe they didn't have anymore with Mark Richt. And to this point, a year and a half into Kirby's tenure, you'd have to say that the move has worked for them.
Yeah, Georgia's playing really well. We're talking with Phil Savage. Phil, we had a guy call earlier and wanted us to ask you about, I think last time you were on the show, Dad, you talked about you put a scouting report together each week, and I'm assuming it's to get ready for your radio and for maybe your NFL responsibilities as well. Could you talk a little bit more about that? Is that you do a scouting report on Arkansas this week, and maybe you give it to Nick Saban? Could you comment about that a little bit?
Yeah, what really happened is going back to 2009, before I started with the Crimson Tide Sports Network, I spent the summer watching Virginia Tech. They were the opening game in 2009 at the Georgia Dome. And so I talked to Todd Blackledge and several other co-analysts, and they said, preparation is going to be the key, for you to do well at this job. So I watched Tech and just began to put my notes together. And, of course, having a football background, I sort of formatted it like I would a scouting report, but just referred to it as my radio notes. And ultimately, of course, Coach Saban's assistant is a lady named Linda Leone. She was my assistant when I was the GM of the Browns. She was Bill Belichick's assistant, some 25 years ago. So we've all been, friends over these years. So I sent it to her about 10 days before that opener and said, hey, here's a bathroom reading for Nick if he's interested. Again, it's sort of a Cliff Notes version of a look at an opponent. And so I didn't think much of it. And then after Bama won that first game, a couple days later on Monday morning, following that win, I was in New York City with my wife, and all of a sudden I get 4 missed calls from Linda. and I call her back. I'm like, what's up? And she said, where are your notes? I'm like, what notes? And she said, the notes on Florida International. I'm like, well, I didn't know I was supposed to be doing this every week. So I didn't want to get that phone call anymore, so I sent those notes. And I think it's probably a little bit as much superstition as anything else for like 117 games in a row. But make no mistake about it. My version of looking at these opponents is nowhere near the depth of what the coaches and the staff go through. But it is a little bit of an overview of each opponent. And, of course, when you play in Arkansas or Tennessee or Mississippi State, a team that's had some continuity on their staff, there's quite a bit of carryover from one year to the next.
Yeah, does Coach Saban give you a deadline, Phil, as to when you got to have those into him?
Well, I just know I got called on that Monday morning, so I usually try to get it in there on Sunday night or Monday morning. And the other thing is too, like for this interview and just I have a certain cycle of interviews I do every week across the state, so I usually try to stay a week ahead of schedule, and that preparation helps me, in terms of talking about Alabama's upcoming opponent, and it's a good exercise for sure.
Yeah. So, what do you see in Arkansas, Phil, as you looked at those guys?
A couple points I'd make about the Razorbacks. First of all, they brought back a veteran quarterback in Austin Allen, who last year threw for over 400 yards against Alabama. Ole Miss and Clemson and Arkansas were three teams that topped 400 yards passing against the Tide. Unfortunately, so far through the first 5 games for the Razorbacks, it seems to me that he's pressed some, tried to force issue pressure to play because while Williams running back on the team, he of course had this career-ending neck injury that occurred back in the spring. They had a set of receivers last year that were senior-oriented. All those guys graduated. He had a tight end, Jeremy Sprinkle, that ended up being drafted in the NFL. So it feels like he's pressed some so far, and it's probably not playing quite as well as he was a year ago, and the numbers bear that out. In his first 5 starts last year, he had 12 touchdowns against only 2 interceptions. Since that time, which started at the Alabama game, he's got 21 touchdown passes and 17 interceptions in his last 14 games. So that's one point I'd make on offense. The other thing I'd say about their defense is they have transitioned from a 4-3 to a 3-4. I've been part of that move several times in the NFL over the years, and it usually takes 18 months to make that move in terms of your personnel and getting everything in order. I think Arkansas's biggest issue as a program is not attracting offensive players, but having enough 4- and 5-star athletes to recruit to defense so that they can play at an elite level on that side of the ball. Because to compete in the SEC, you've got to be able to play defense. And to me, that's been Arkansas's biggest issue. They don't really have the top-flight difference-making pass rusher or cornerback or free safety. So they have to play a team concept. They've struggled some so far this year. And that's sort of the overview of the Razorbacks coming into this game.
Yep,
I think Brian's done a really good job in handling the offense. He's gotten, he's added things each year each week when everybody was complaining about why don't we do this, why don't we do that. He's added stuff, and I think the main problem that you have now is the quarterback and Harris, the running back, did not get to see quality playing time, although the quarterback had good playing time. I think you have to smooth that a little bit and keep that smooth in the right direction, and if you do that, you're okay.
Yeah, I really am impressed with what Brian Dable's done. It's his first venture in college football since 1999. I think he's playing to the strengths of Alabama's offense, which is the dual-threat quarterback, Jalen Hurts, and a stable of running backs that could virtually start anywhere in the country. And so they're feeding off that run game, and I think that the real trick for Alabama is going to be to continue to develop the passing game, especially when it's 3rd and long. When it's 3rd and 7 or longer, that was problematic for Alabama down the stretch last year in the playoffs in particular. And I think as the competition gets better and better, that's an area of their game where they can continue to show the most growth. And, the other night they were facing 3rd and long several times, and they picked it up. And so I think those are really good experiences and plays that they can build on, again, as the defenses get better, especially down the stretch. You mentioned, Georgia, and perhaps if the Tide can get to the playoff again, that you're going to face some defenses that are going to be able to put you behind the sticks. And to me, that's the overarching theme for from Brian Daboll is to continue to help Jalen Hurts progress from being just a dual threat quarterback to a more complete quarterback. And I would say that he's made some definite positive steps in that direction.
Well, I want you to, before you go, I want you to talk a little bit about your book, how it started. I want to, because a lot of people didn't hear the show the last time. Just the insights of what happened to get you started on that, and then that'll be something I think that'll help you a little bit.
Yeah, Coach. Of course, it's Fourth and Goal every day. It was released right at the end of August, the week of the first game. And what really happened is, of course, when I came to the radio booth, I never even crossed my mind that, I would want to write a book about the experience. But over the years, Bama's had an incredible run of success. And, I felt like that, 50, 75, 100 years from now, people are going to look back on this era of Alabama football and say, man, how did they do that? And with my experiences of growing up within the state, during Coach Bryant's era in the 1970s, and then the fact that I'd worked with Bill Belichick and Nick Saban at Cleveland in the early 90s when they were formulating a lot of their philosophies and just the approach to personnel and how to put a team and a roster together, and combine that with these last 8 years of being in the booth and seeing the team in practice and just watching all of this come to fruition. The co-writer, Ray Gleer, called me and said, Sab, you could combine those three things. He said that'd be the most unique perspective that anybody would ever have in regards to Bama football. And so in a lot of ways, Coach, it's a tribute book to the Tide and the players and the coaches and of course, Nick Saban in terms of what they've achieved from my own personal observation from 30 years of being in the sport and watching all of this come to life in Tuscaloosa. When Nick Saban got the job, Ozzie Newsome was the GM of the Ravens. I was the GM of the Browns. Ozzie and I had worked together for 14 years, and we were on the phone. I said, well, Wiz, one thing about this, I said, this is going to be the quickest divorce in the history of college football or the greatest marriage the sport has ever seen. And I would say that it's turned into a perfect marriage between Nick Saban and Alabama football. And that really was the root of writing about the culture of Bama and why it's been so successful over this last decade.
Well, the only one other thing you have to do, we're going to let you go. One other thing you have to do for me, and that is tonight. If you have to, just lie to me. Tell me that you're going to root for the Cleveland Indians. I'm the biggest Cleveland Indian fan. I'm the only one in Alabama. I went there I've gone there all my life, and they're playing in the final game. In order to see who moves on, you got to at least root for the Cleveland Indians.
Coach, that's your team. And as a matter of fact, I do an interview on WTAM up there, the big one, 1100. And we unfortunately,
tell them about me.
We talked about the Browns for a few minutes, but we did close out with the Indians. So we're hoping.
Hey! Tell them that I went up there when I was 10 years old on the train with $10 pinned to my underwear and a blue comb in my pocket, and I changed trains in Cincinnati, and they got me up there. Train had a wreck, Hummingbird. My senior year in high school, I hitchhiked from Florence, Alabama. I hitchhiked all the way up there. So I'm the only guy that you've ever talked to that saw Satchel Paige pitch. And I hitchhiked up there and came back and hitchhiked back. So you tell them that.
I definitely will. Of course, Satchel Paige is from Mobile. So,
yeah,
there's a connection there. I actually met his sister a number of years ago. And, of course, he was pitching for the Indians in the late 1940s.
I saw Williams play for Boston. I saw DiMaggio. I saw them all. I ain't never have enjoyed anything anymore of that in my life. So because I'm a huge Cleveland fan. And when I was in Little Rock, the guy that owned Alltel flew me over there and let me sit by the dugout. And if Cleveland gets in there again, he's getting another phone call if I can find him.
Yeah.
So
Phil,
anyway.
don't if they win, he'll be calling you for tickets, Phil.
When I was with the Browns in 1991, We walked that same player tunnel and hung our clothes on the same nails that Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig and all those guys. That stadium was so old.
Well, bring me some of those nails. Oh, that's great. I'll be up there. I'm going to buy all kind of stuff.
Thanks, Phil.
Thank you.
You guys be good. Thanks, Coach.